Hey, you guys, check this out. On February 2nd, 2019, Disruptarian.com will be broadcasting their debut show. They will be exposing snitches, talking about government conspiracies, shaming social justice warriors, and brainless atheists. You know Groundhog's Day is a massive plot to put everyone in an interdimensional time cyclone, right? Check out www.disruptarian.com.
Ah! Who are you?
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan. You should have respected my authority.
The Federal Reserve System, the bankers, have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore, because they're both the same. Neither one of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes, or any of the big issues that face Americans.
El gobierno de Estados Unidos sacó un decreto de esos que ellos sacan, de sanciones, nada más y nada menos que contra la primera dama de Venezuela, Cilia Flores. Nunca se había visto algo así. Si ustedes quieren atacarme, atácanme a mí, pero no se metan con Cilia, no se metan con la familia, no sean cobardes. Él es alto funcionario, que Donald Trump insistió en varias oportunidades y en una reunión privada con el presidente saliente de Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, y con otros presidentes aliados de la derecha imperialista, a uno por uno lo increpó para que aceptara su idea de una intervención militar sobre Venezuela.
In the day's other news, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is celebrating the election of a new legislative body that would give him sweeping new powers. But today, the U.S. slapped Maduro with financial sanctions. In a statement, President Trump referred to Maduro's, quote, sham election and said he is now, quote, a dictator.
But first, a years-long economic crisis in Venezuela has that country in a steep downward spiral. Violence rocked the nation earlier this year as President Nicolas Maduro pushed through controversial political changes. Maduro has come in for tough criticism from President Trump.
A manhunt is underway for suspects involved in an apparent assassination attempt on Venezuela's president.
It's a regime that, frankly, could be toppled very quickly by the military if the military decides to do that. And you saw how the military spread as soon as they heard a bomb go off way above their head. That military was running for cover.
Video captured the terrifying scene over the weekend. A drone strapped with explosives appeared to target President Nicolas Maduro during a military parade on Saturday.
And you saw how the military spread as soon as they heard a bomb go off way above their head.
6 people have been arrested. Maduro has been accused of undermining democracy and violating human rights in Venezuela. The country's tanking economy has also triggered a massive refugee crisis.
But that's a lie. That's an illusion. The word democracy is not written into the Constitution at one time. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. The Founding Fathers hated the idea of a democracy. They thought it was the worst form of government there is. And I agree with them. Because in a democracy, 51% of the people control 49% of the people. If you're part of the 49%, you're not free. America was founded as a constitutional republic. And in that constitutional republic that we have, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%. You have your rights because you were born with them. You have God-given human rights that nobody can take away from you. The government, the majority, no matter who they are, I can't take away your rights. And that's what our founding fathers gave us. But the psychological operations that they do to us, they make us believe that we're a democracy and that majority rules.
Considering for Venezuela, what options are on the table right now to deal with this mess?
We have many options for Venezuela. And by the way, I'm not going to rule out a military option. We have many options for Venezuela. This is our neighbor. This is, we're all over the world. And we have troops all over the world in places that are very, very far away.
They believe we're in Iraq to promote democracy. The word democracy, you hear George Bush saying democracy means freedom. No, democracy equals New World Order. Democracy equals slavery. The word democracy is not synonymous with freedom. It's the opposite of freedom.
Venezuela is not very far away, and the people are suffering, and they're dying. We have many options for Venezuela, including a possible military option if necessary.
That would be U.S.-led, Mr. President?
Say?
That would be a U.S.-led military operation?
We don't talk about it, but a military operation, a military option is certainly something that we could pursue.
Democracy is the worst form of government you can have because it's majority rule. And the government can tell you exactly what they want to tell you to do.
We're here to discuss the growing crisis in Venezuela. The socialist dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro has inflicted terrible misery and suffering on the good people of that country. This corrupt regime destroyed a thriving nation by imposing a failed ideology that has produced poverty and despair everywhere it has been tried. To make matters worse, Maduro has defied his own people, stealing power from their elected representatives to preserve his disastrous rule. The Venezuelan people are starving, and their country is collapsing. It was one of the wealthiest countries in the world for a long period of time, and now the people are starving and the country is collapsing. Who would think that's possible? Their democratic institutions are being destroyed. The situation is completely unacceptable. As responsible neighbors and friends of the Venezuelan people, our goal must be to help them regain their freedom, recover their country, and restore their democracy.
Because the majority wants it. I don't care what the majority wants. I live my life as I choose. And if I don't commit violence, theft, or fraud against another human being, I can live my life as I wish. That's my choice. And if I'm allowed to make mistakes, because when you make mistakes, you learn from them. You grow as a human being. We're put on this earth to become the best individuals we can be, to fulfill our God-given potential.
After a couple of days of relative silence from White House officials while they were traveling overseas, a full-court push from the press secretary, from the incoming acting chief of staff, as the president says he's going to shut the whole southern border down. What's up?
Willing to go to drastic measures, shutting down the border. Look at the tweet that he put up this morning indicating that's the strategy. We will be forced to close the southern border entirely.
How could there be a war on terror and actually say that we're having a war against terrorism and leave the borders wide open? If you were the president of the United States, or I were the president of the United States, and 9/11 really happened the way they want us to believe it happened, the first thing you would do is shut down the borders so people couldn't get in the country to harm you. But they left the borders wide open because the bankers want the borders open because they want a one-world government. They want a North American Union. They don't want borders here. The 9/11 was only a manifestation. It was done to create a fear in the American public, right? So that we will obey what they want us to do.
Vice President. Hello. Nice to see you. Is he good? Yes. Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank
you. We got to do something. That's what it is, you know. Silence is golden, but when it comes to your freedom, it's yellow. You know, we have to stop being scared. We have to stand up and do what's necessary to take back, to stop these bankers, these elite, this government full of lies, congressmen full of liars, you know, people destroying our borders, you know, creating a government. I mean, imagine this. Here you are in America, and they're combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, the North American Union, and the American people don't know anything about it.
I'm honored to be here with President Enrique Peña Nieto. Become a great friend of Mexico, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has also become a great friend. This has been a battle, and battles sometimes make great friendships, so it's really terrific. These new provisions will benefit labor, technology, and development in each of our nations, leading to much greater growth and opportunity throughout our countries and across North America. In short, this is a model agreement that changes the trade landscape forever. I look forward to working with members of Congress and the USMCA partners, and I have to say it's been so well reviewed, I don't expect to have very much of a problem.
Here you are combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, and you don't see it in the press.
Unless maybe it's Lou Dobbs.
You don't see it in the press. You just don't see it.
It should be the top story everywhere.
Everywhere, and not a word about it, really. Why? That tells you there's the evidence that it's controlled. They don't want the American people to know what's going on. That's why they don't protect our borders. That's why we're losing our Constitution, the very document that secures our freedoms.
Currently, we are witnessing a human tragedy, as an example, in Venezuela. More than 2 million people have fled the anguish inflicted by the socialist Maduro regime and its Cuban sponsors.
Now, they've taken over our government, both Republicans and Democrats. There's no difference anymore between the two parties. They control both parties. It doesn't matter to them which one wins, because who's ever running for president will be someone they anoint. They're going to be people that are going to do what they want them to do. And the fact of the matter happens to be that you can't win an election unless you have enough money to win. They make sure who gets the money. So through that, through these bankers attempting to taking over America, knowing that America was the freest nation in the world, it was necessary for them to take over America, take away our gun rights of freedom to bear arms, and create a country where we become slaves. Because once they take over America, the rest of the world becomes a lot easier for them. And so, by creating 9/11, an event to terrify the American people that were being attacked by terrorists, you create a world where there's an enemy that can never be pinpointed. You can never win the battle. It's a 100-year war. It's a never-ending war on terrorism, right? So you're always fighting this war. And through the war on terrorism, which is the 9/11, which is the first lie, then you create the war on terrorism, which is the next lie. Then you create the war in Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, which is the next lie. And it's one lie to the next lie to the next lie. Now it's going to be Iran, the next lie, sending more troops and a surge into Iraq. It's just one thing leading to the other, and it's always it's always in the point of taking over more countries, more dominance. You know, making sure the American dollar, making sure the G8 stays in control of everything. And what they want to do is to control the American people, control the people of the world, put RFID chips in everybody, so everybody's a slave to these central banks. Look, we're dealing with complete evil. We're dealing with complete evil. And until the American people wake up and say, we don't want this evil in our country anymore, and we want to come back to a country of decency and goodness and integrity and honor, you know, we're going down that road. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to people to stand up and say, we don't want to live in this kind of a world anymore. You know, I believe we should pull all our troops out of Iraq. I believe we should leave other countries alone. Let other countries live their lives the way they choose to. You know, stop trying to spread democracy around the world, which is the worst form of government there is anyway. Restore our republic to what it's supposed to be, and go back to what the founding fathers gave us. And try and restore that, restore the republic.
President Trump has reportedly slowed down his timetable for withdrawing troops from Syria, but earlier today he told reporters at the White House that he's standing by his decision to leave. Watch.
Syria was lost long ago. It was lost long ago. And besides that, we're talking about sand and death. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, you know, vast wealth. We're talking about sand and death.
All right, the president also claimed he, quote, essentially fired former Defense Secretary James Mattis for his handling of the situation in Afghanistan, and said he also criticized his current generals for their military advice in Syria.
But I think that it's all about, as Nick said to me, it's about control and power. They have all the money they want. They can make all the money they want. They have a machine that can make all the money. It's not about money. It's about control. It's about their vision of how they want to see the world in their eyes. And, You know, you and I believe in individuality, in the person being the dominant thing, the individual being the dominant person. Today we live in a world where institutions are dominant, not people. You know, the American, you know, we the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's we the institutions, by the institutions, for the institutions. People are secondary. It's all about corporations and institutions. And the Federal Reserve is the biggest institution in the world. You know, if you ask somebody what's the biggest corporation in the world, they'll say Google or Walmart or Exxon or something. But the biggest corporation in the world is the Federal Reserve System, right? And all the other corporations feed off the nipple of the Federal Reserve System.
Well, it's like the Monopoly game. The bank always wins. It has unlimited money. It's not the people playing on the board.
Exactly.
The bank owns the board, the box, the shelf it's sitting on.
But that's because you gave them the ability to make the money. You have to take that away from them.
We need to take the bank away from the private bankers.
Exactly. You have to take the creation of money away from the private bankers, and you'll solve 95% of your problems.
The answer is vote against the bill. That is what I do. I argue for the case of the responsibility being on the Congress, but it's the responsibility of us who believe in fiscal conservatism to vote against the bill. We need to vote against the spending is what we need to do.
Point. He says, quote, the bailout actually was something that really worked. Is that Republican governor wrong?
Well, you know that's interesting that when they argue that case. First, I don't like the idea that you have good bailouts and bad bailouts. If bailouts are bad, they're bad, and we shouldn't be doing it. But this argument about maybe one that works, you know, well, now that the bankruptcy or the bailing out of GM worked, I said that's sort of like if a criminal goes out and robs a bank and he's successful, therefore you endorse what he did because he's successful. But you have to rob people. You have to distort the law. The government is supposed to protect contracts. They're not supposed to regulate contracts, and they're not supposed to undermine contracts. And that's what we've been doing. In the housing bubble, we undermine contracts. And this is what we're doing here. So you want to respect the contracts. A lot of people will accuse me of advocating a free market, that there's no regulations. Actually, the regulations are tougher because you have to go through bankruptcy and you have to face up to this. And it isn't like General Motors would be destroyed. Newt made that point there, that there were good parts of General Motors, but politicians can't figure this out. Then they serve the special interest, and then you have labor fighting big business. I opt for the free market and the defense of liberty. That's what we need in this country.
All right.
Yeah, man, hey, Rastaman, just wanna give you pro tip, man. I wanna give big up to Disruptarian.com. Yeah, man, and to let you know that Disruptarian Radio's debut show is gonna be streaming live. Yeah, man, live on February 2nd, 2019, man. That's Groundhog's Day. But hey, so don't be late. Walk good. Yeah, man. See you later, man.